welcome to episode 71 of Let's Talk Bitcoin, a twice-weekly show about the ideas, people, and projects building the digital economy and the future of money. Visit us at letstalkbitcoin.com for our daily guest blog, all our past episodes, and of course, tipping addresses. My name is Adam B. Levine. Happy New Year's Eve! As we move into the wild blue yonder of 2014, it's becoming clear Bitcoin won't be the only cryptocurrency to find popular success. At the recent Las Vegas event, Stephanie Murphy caught up with Litecoin devs Charlie Lee and Warren Tagami to talk the value in the past, Litecoin's contribution to the larger cryptocurrency ecosystem, and what they're aiming for in the future. This interview comprises the second part of today's show. But first, Nick Carey is one of the leads behind the wildly popular blockchain.info, a multi-tool and an easy, relatively secure online wallet. We kick off today's show in Argentina, where he sat down with LTB's Andreas M. Antonopoulos. Enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Andreas Antonopoulos in Latin America in Buenos Aires, Argentina for the Latin American Bitcoin Conference. I'm very pleased today to have with me Nick Carey from Blockchain. Nick Carey is the new CEO of blockchain.info, the company that has brought so many new users into the space by giving them an easy-to-use online web wallet. I'm very excited to have you here, Nick.
Thank you very much. Mucho gusto.
Thanks for coming, and thanks for all the work that you have done as part of the Blockchain Info company. I know you've experienced some absolutely outstanding or dramatic growth in the recent months after the price change.
Yeah, it's been a very wild ride. I'd have to say that all the credit really should go to the co-founder who has designed and built an unbelievable web tool that's brought wonderful value and solved some really important problems in the Bitcoin economy as a young business. And so the last few months, we've seen really impressive community adoption of blockchain. We're one of the older companies in Bitcoin. I think we're 2.5 years old now, so that makes us almost Jurassic in Bitcoin years. But I'm happy to talk more about sort of the trajectory of the business and tell you a little bit more about what we've been working on. So November was a particularly historic month for blockchain. At the very end of October, we actually hit 500,000 wallets. So that represents 500,000 users. And you think about some of the big cities in the world, that's actually the same size as some of them. So we're really seeing impressive adoption of Bitcoin. And that was just through October. So kind of a historic number just for people's psychology. But November was even better. We saw almost 300,000 new wallet users in the month of November with just unbelievable traction. At one point, we were doing 1,000 new wallets an hour. That velocity is continuing through December here. So we're watching all that very carefully. It's been wonderful to see the traction.
One of the things that I find most interesting about blockchain, apart from the user interface, which is relatively easy to use and has been developing, one of the core principles behind the blockchain info wallet is that you don't store the credentials of the end user, and you essentially give them the ability at any time from a wallet backup to be able to reconstruct their wallet and use it independently in any other application. Traditionally, there's been this trade-off where you either have the full desktop client and full control, or you go to a web wallet, but then you've got this trusted third-party issue that can introduce a lot of risk. And you seem to have found the golden mean right between those positions. Tell me a bit about that model.
Yeah, we like to call it a web-assisted wallet. So we have all the convenience of a web wallet, but none of the liabilities. So we really try and democratize the technology as well, so that end users, if they choose, even if they don't trust us for some reason, even though we don't have access to their private keys, their passwords, or any of that, they can leave anytime. And we provide lots of tool sets to migrate to other tools. But we really hope that people find a safe place to store their Bitcoins at blockchain. I like to tell people that I store all of my Bitcoins at blockchain.info, but it's really important for users to understand basic security practices they really should follow. So all users should set up two-factor authentication. They should really learn and set up a secondary password, which approves a transaction send. And if they do those things, then they're most likely going to be just fine. The most secure way to use blockchain.info is to use either the Android app, our iPhone app, the Chrome extension, or the Firefox extension. Those are the best, most secure ways to use the blockchain.info wallet.
And so the secondary password, which is a key innovation, it prevents you from sending funds unless you enter the secondary password.
That's exactly right. So, for example, let's say you use the blockchain.info Apple wallet and someone steals your wallet. If you didn't have a secondary password set up, they could send transactions from that wallet if you were logged in. The secondary password would prevent something like that from happening. So think of it almost like a PIN or a key when you pull money out of an ATM or authorize any type of movement of money from your wallet. And of course, if you have an email address set up at blockchain.info, we'll automatically send you a wallet backup, and you can get that directly to your email instantly after the transaction is complete.
I'm one of the more security paranoid people in the space, primarily.
We appreciate it.
through experience in security, it makes me paranoid because digital information security is really hard. It's not easy. I really appreciate blockchain.info's ability to provide multiple layers of security. So it's not just about having a secure core, but layers and layers of protection so that the more you're trying to do with the wallet, the more security you have to get through. If I just want to check my balance, I'm never going to see the second password. But if I do want to send, then I have to escalate my level of security. And that provides me with a much greater degree of comfort.
Yeah, and you should know that we host in all of the code for blockchain.info on dedicated private servers. So there are 0 third parties involved at blockchain.info. All of the code was all crafted internally. Everything's homemade. We don't use third-party software anywhere.
One of the little notice features, perhaps, and I'd like to point this out, when you're requested the secondary password for sending, there's a little hidden feature there, which is what pops up on your screen is a virtual keyboard. Some people may wonder why that is. Can't you just go into the input field and type away on your keyboard? Yes, of course you can. But the real magic of that feature is that it allows you to mouse your second password so that even in the event that your machine has been completely Trojan and compromised, and you have a keylogger, which is probably one of the biggest threats for online wallets or wallets in general, the keylogger will not be able to capture the entry of the secondary password.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. That is an amazing and really important point. And one of the responsibilities we have is to actually help users understand to do these things more and to guide them and coach them through these things. So I'll speak real quickly about a project we're working on, which is a new user education game, basically. So when a wallet will be created, we will actually send a user through a pathway of learning what a private key is, how to use an address, how to set up a secondary password, and actually demonstrate this functional use so that people are actually behaving and learning to do these things without someone having to have a one-on-one conversation with them. So at the end of this game, we'll have actually a reward for new users who complete it, and we'll give them some fractions of a Bitcoin for completing it. So that's kind of one of the things we're working on. We really feel strongly that in order for Bitcoin to be ready for the next 10, 50, 100 million users, some of these best practices have to just become second nature. And so far, the battlefield of Bitcoin has really been fought in these one-on-one conversations, and some amazing evangelists have dedicated their entire lives to doing that. But the software has got to mature. The new user education has to mature, and it has to be so simple to use that people don't even realize why they're clicking on the secondary password that way for their own privacy. But that's one of the things we're thinking about. So we're trying to incorporate those things into maturing our software.
There are many layers of security, and very often security is seen as the kind of thing where you just buy a security product, say a firewall, you put it as a point solution, and of course that's not security. And above that, you want to think about architecture, operations. But in this new field, I think one of the most underappreciated aspects of security is user interface design and user experience. The best way to apply security is when the user doesn't even know they're secure. But through their user experience in the interface, they adopt secure practices because it is the intuitive thing to do rather than the counterintuitive thing to do. And I think you've made a lot of progress in that space.
Yeah, and I think the other area I will comment on, which is that we live in this age now where many, many people are so not careful with their privacy. In fact, they live completely open with their whole world on Facebook, on Twitter, and all these social media sites. And I think that Bitcoin can almost interestingly bring some of that privacy back without people even necessarily knowing it, by designing very effectively, by teaching through games and otherwise why, using things like Bitcoin can actually improve everyone's freedom and security around the world. But I think about that for all the millennials that, they broadcast their whole lives in the world, but we're about to introduce the most digital, most free money in the history of time that can also be the most private one. And I think companies should have an obligation to sort of weave that same sort of philosophy into the privacy side and not just the security.
Security is a problem for Bitcoin. But as an entrepreneur, and especially in the field of security, that means opportunity. And we have programmable money, so we can actually innovate in ways of security and create new security models, new security paradigms, new security practices through this programmable money, be it multi-sig, be it coin join and being able to do anonymization, or be it the user interface design. Where do you see blockchain.info's role in innovation and using innovation as a tool to drive better security and better wallet experience?
So it is going to be a core principle of the blockchain team to implement and prototype all kinds of new ideas. And a little like Google Labs does that, that's going to be something we incorporated well into our business. We'll literally spend time and resources on wild ideas just to see if we can get them working. I love multi-sig. CoinJoin is a major push inside the blockchain wallet right now. It is currently a free feature that helps users break the custody of coin transactions without ever having to surrender their coins to a centralized server. So it allows a server to manage proposals and individuals to basically make a shared transaction together. And what's amazing about CoinJoin is that it actually improves the privacy of the entire Bitcoin network, because when you study transactions now, you won't know whether or not any of the original addresses belong to the same person. So we're very excited about that technology. Multi-sig is definitely on our radar as well. And we're open to ideas from anyone. So to everyone who's listening, if you have great ideas, please send them along. We're definitely looking for innovation from our users. That's actually been one of the reasons why blockchain looks and behaves and is the way it is. We spent hundreds and hundreds of hours on Bitcoin Talk forums, going through posts, responding to people, and we haven't gotten to everyone. And part of it has been more difficult than ever to keep up with the volume of interactions. And we are dedicating resources around the clock to work on these things. So if you have good ideas, please share them with us. We want to build things that Bitcoin users love and make and want in their lives.
I would add to that it has been incredibly impressive to watch, and that's probably due in no small part to Ben, the core engineer of blockchain.info, to watch how quickly ideas can be turned into reality prototypes and then actual production code. And I think one perfect example of that was within less than a week of the release of CoinJoin as an idea,
as a
methodology, there was an implementation in blockchain.info. It was absolutely the first implementation in any wallet, and certainly that is in no small part due to Ben.
Yeah, Ben is unbelievable, and I think what inspires him in many ways is an impressive sense of curiosity around how new and innovative things can be done with Bitcoin. So whenever there's a project like that needs some attention, he's on it right away, and he studies it, and he thinks about how to build something. And when it makes sense for us to have that in blockchain, we will. When it makes sense to open source things and just provide resources to the community, we'll do that as well. So yeah, he read that, studied the proposal for a CoinJoin solution, and I was talking with him one afternoon. I was like, "Do you think that something like that could be done?" He's like, "Yeah, I think maybe in like 3 or 4 days." I was like, "Yeah, I've heard that before from developers, and sometimes that's 3 or 4 months or something like it." But he delivers very quickly.
And so, what's next for blockchain.info? Where do you see the future in the next 12 months?
Okay, 12 months. I probably won't try and project that far along. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit in blockchain, and we're really trying to prepare it for newer audiences. I think blockchain.info became so successful because it was listening to the very earliest adopters who wanted amazing and interesting features for Bitcoin. And the next kind of battlefield in Bitcoin is to create interfaces that are much more familiar to millennials, to mom and pop people, to anyone who's got a cell phone. So we're thinking about that in a couple different ways. This summer, Blockchain purchased blockchain.com. So we own a couple couple different web properties. So we've got blockchain.com, blockchain.info, and we'll be launching sharedcoin.com sometime in Q1. So the idea behind these different properties is as follows. Blockchain.info will continue to be the Bitcoin block explorer, and we're going to build more and more functionality into studying the Bitcoin economy, being a resource for journalists and academics and anybody that wants to crunch numbers. So big data analytics is definitely going to be coming to blockchain.info, and one of the hopes there is that we'll continue to get feedback from people on what to build, and we do every week, and there's some really profound and interesting economists that are starting to provide guidance for us for things that they're looking for, and if we hear an interesting idea, we just implement it. So the vision for blockchain.info is basically to become a little bit like the Google for Bitcoin, studying the network, or maybe the Bloomberg of Bitcoin, and we're going to be investing in that for especially sort of more sophisticated Bitcoin users. Blockchain.com is going to become the web wallet, and we're going to build out and invest all over the place to make the user experience as familiar and as simple to use as possible while teaching people about privacy and about security. So those are going to be core principles in our apps. We're totally reworking all the UI right now for a wonderful new iPhone application that I hope to get out in the next quarter as well. We're going to be investing in our Chrome extension, our Firefox extension, Firefox OS. We want to be wherever people are so that they have access to their blockchain wallets in a secure way that's easy to use. And that's kind of the key functionality we're sort of focused on in blockchain, is basically putting it on mobile and making it easier to use. That's a major endeavor, and a lot of people talk about those things, but we're going to A/B test everything. When we can't figure out which way to design, we're going to let math prove it for us. The last property is sharedcoin.com, and the vision for SharedCoin is actually to turn it into a donation and campaign building application. So if I'm really inspired by the World Wildlife Foundation, or I want to donate money to a cause in Africa or something like that, I'll be able to build a campaign there and then solicit donations from other people around the internet in Bitcoin. So what'll happen is a bunch of proposals will be submitted into a SharedCoin campaign, and once the donations hit the peak amount, then we'll send a CoinJoin transaction to the end recipient. This will be a free tool for anyone who wants to start a campaign for any social cause or political cause that they feel they want to raise money for.
Very exciting stuff coming down the pike, and of course, all of this will be almost overshadowed by the enormous influx of users that we're certainly anticipating, if not slightly dreading, from an operational perspective. So, where do you see the growth in terms of wallets going in the next few months?
I anticipate it'll be very fast. Blockchain provides free APIs for teams and developers and entrepreneurs to integrate a Bitcoin wallet right into their apps or tool sets. So I'm having heard about some projects that are firing up in the next 6 to 8 weeks. I'm very encouraged for the total user base of Bitcoin growing, but for blockchain, it'll be very special too, because we're anticipating seeing over 1 million wallets, hopefully by the end of this year. I think that number is just going to keep going up. The velocity is getting faster and faster. So with free APIs for wallet creation and things like that, lots of different organizations and teams and businesses around the world are relying on the blockchain wallet. So we're excited for all the future growth. But for the most part, it's going to be a wild ride. We're investing right now in anticipation of that growth, buying lots of equipment and hardware and posting that in different geographic and politically redundant zones. We're anticipating the next big wave of users.
So you mentioned APIs. And I think that's probably one of the unsung heroes of Bitcoin in general, but also blockchain.info. As a developer, I've used the blockchain.info APIs. And I think it's important to mention the richness of those APIs, both in terms of being able to extract information from transactions and blocks in easy-to-consume JSON and RESTful interfaces, but also some of the real-time WebSocket interfaces that you have that can be used to create applications that are ultimately responsive in real time to events on the network. Can you tell us a bit about the APIs and their importance to your business?
They're hugely important to blockchain.info. So if you're an entrepreneur or developer and you're interested in getting a business started up, please check out the free documentation. They've always been free. We have a rate limiter right now in place, but you can easily apply to override that. And if you're anticipating a lot of traffic, definitely get an API key for it. We think, and we don't know for sure because you don't even have to be a blockchain user to use some of our APIs, but they're responsible for 1/3 to almost nearly 1/2 of all of the volume on the back end for wallet creation and transactions in the Bitcoin economy from the blockchain wallet perspective. So they're very interesting. They're very exciting. They're incredibly strategically important for us. We will continue to keep the documentation current, to release APIs for all the services we build. We want people to do anything and everything they want with our technologies.
Nick Carey of blockchain.info, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us some of your vision and the exciting days ahead for Bitcoin and for blockchain.info. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's going to be an incredibly exciting year. We're looking forward to building a world-class team. So if you are interested, please visit us at blockchain.info and get in touch. We're looking for people to help join the mission. Thank you.
Purse.io is a gift exchange that helps you shop on Amazon with Bitcoins and at a 6% discount. How does it work? You create an Amazon wish list, share it with Purse.io, and deposit Bitcoin equivalent to the cost of your item. You'll soon receive your item in the mail, purchased for you by someone who gets your Bitcoin in return. You must try this new service. Let's Talk Bitcoin listeners will even receive additional rewards. Visit Purse.io. When you shop with Bitcoin on Gift, you can get gift cards from over 200 retailers. Think of the possibilities. Not only is your holiday shopping taken care of in a snap from your Android device or on the web, but now you have a way to purchase everyday items from stores like Target, CVS, Gap, and GameStop using your Bitcoins. That's not even the best part. When you shop with Bitcoin on Gift, you get 3% back. Ready to shop? Visit gyft.com today. Hi, so I'm here today with two very special gentlemen who are involved intimately in the Litecoin project. It's Charlie Lee, he is the creator of Litecoin, and Warren Tagami, developer, and also you made Fedora, so you are well known for that as well. You are both also Bitcoin developers. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie.
Great. So, okay, first of all, for somebody who's never heard of Litecoin before, and people are hearing about it, so it's getting more popular, but for somebody who's never heard of Litecoin, how would you describe it? What is it?
When I first created it, I always described it as silver to Bitcoin's gold. So it's kind of an easy way to understand what Litecoin is, the proposition of Litecoin, trying to be a lighter version of Bitcoin, more currency, and faster transactions, something that's easier for someone to spend than Bitcoin.
I joined development of Litecoin fairly late in May of this year, and I actually thought that the silver slogan was kind of silly, but then it turned out to be true in a way, so I'm going with it. The lighter than Bitcoin thing turned out to be true from an engineering and a user behavioral standpoint, thanks to a change that Charlie made in 2011 that discouraged uneconomical, tiny, or some people would call spam transactions that bloat the blockchain. If the blockchain and the client scales at a pace that is more in line with actual users, then it makes it easier for people to get started to use the client. And we're actually making improvements to Litecoin and submitting back some of this back to Bitcoin within the next few months, with the goal of making Litecoin even more light.
Okay, so you want it to be very user-friendly. And when was the Litecoin project first started, Charlie? When did you first think of it?
I created it in October of 2011.
October 2011. Okay, so it's one of the oldest so-called altcoins, but it's not the oldest. Is that correct?
That's correct. When I created Litecoin, there were quite a few other altcoins out there, and I was dabbling with them, playing around with them. That's when I realized that Bitcoin is awesome, but there's always going to be an alternative. People like to have choices, so I decided to create my own, because what was out there was really not very good. So I took all the good things from other altcoins, picked a good name, launched it very fairly, and that was that. And the rest is history, I guess.
And when you say you launched it fairly, you're talking about no pre-mining, is that correct?
That's correct. So the previous coins had like a lot of pre-mines. One coin had like 7 million coins pre-mined. So the developers were trying to kind of strike it rich. They launched a coin, had a lot for themselves, tried to get bribed in exchange to accept it. When people were trading, speculating on it, they could like cash out. They could cash out like hundreds of thousands of dollars that way. And I wanted to launch something that's fair, because I think that's how to succeed long term, not to just for short-term profit. So I actually announced the coin. I actually released the software a week before it started mining. So what was missing was a Genesis block, so I kept that to myself, and then everyone had a chance to prepare their software for mining on their PC. And then on the date of the launch, which was also democratically chosen by a poll on the forum, I released the Genesis block hash, and people just jumped in at the same second. And at that point, I didn't have any Litecoins myself, so I had one block mine, and then the rest is everyone jumped in.
3, 2, 1, go. Right.
I'd like to add that in addition to the fair distribution from the very beginning and a fairly smooth, you could say, difficulty curve showing continued fair distribution through the history of Litecoin, I really have to credit Charlie for the anti-spam rule that I think is one of the reasons why Litecoin has survived to today when so many others have failed.
When you talk about anti-spam, there was something that happened in 2011 where somebody launched an attack on the Litecoin network and sent like millions of tiny one Litecoin Satoshi transactions to addresses. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So at that time, some people didn't like Litecoin. A lot of the Bitcoin supporters thought that all currencies is a parasite on Bitcoin. It takes away from Bitcoin. I personally don't agree. I think there's always going to be an alternative currency, and people like choices. So we got attacked in a sense where a lot of tiny Satoshi transactions were sent on the Litecoin network. Because our fees weren't very strict back then, it didn't cost the attacker much. Maybe it cost them like $10, $20 in fees to bloat the blockchain by like megabytes, like you make it really cumbersome for everyone else. So at that point, I tried various things. I made the fees harsher, made dust spams cost more, so that if you want to attack the network, you had to pay for it. That helped really a lot.
Litecoin uses a different mining algorithm than Bitcoin. It's called Script, Script with a Y, and Bitcoin uses the SHA-256 algorithm. And you made that choice because the Script algorithm is more memory intensive, and you thought it would be resistant to mining on specialized devices like GPUs or ASIC miners. Is that correct?
The main reason why I decided to use Script is because I realized early on that it would be hard for all currency to survive with Bitcoin if it was fighting for the same set of miners. Back then, the Bitcoin miners were using GPUs, so I wanted something that was hostile to GPUs but worked on CPU. So Script was a choice, and one of the good things about Script is it scales well with hardware. So recently, for example, the Bitcoin ASICs came out. They are like about 100 times more efficient than GPU mining. So when they came on the scene, all the GPU miners got basically wiped out because it became super unprofitable to mine with GPUs.
But they still had the equipment.
They still had the equipment, and someone figured out how to make GPU mining efficient on Script. It's like 10 times more efficient, but not like Bitcoin. So all the GPU miners switched to mining Litecoin Script, which is cool. So we still have a different set of miners mining the two different coins. And I believe that when ASICs for Litecoin does come out, it won't totally wipe out the GPU miners. So in some sense, hopefully it will be more democratic, where people with GPUs will still be able to mine Litecoin.
I'll have to add here to speak to something that Charlie mentioned earlier about the Bitcoin people who don't appreciate altcoins. Well, for one, for Script, the Litecoin network is now secured by entirely different hardware that is no longer capable of being used with Bitcoin in a meaningful way. So there is an alternative network now. To help justify Litecoin's existence at all, especially with the growth of the Litecoin development team recently, we now believe that Litecoin can help Bitcoin by helping to improve the upstream Bitcoin software that we also rely upon for improvements. In the last several Bitcoin releases, we have had a major influence on bug fixes, not only in the 0.8 point releases, but also in the upcoming 0.9 release. In addition to that, we are working on entirely new features that would be suitable for Bitcoin as well. And a lot of this are detailed on the Litecoin project blog and Google Plus stream, which is quite active in describing what's going on with the development project. We are engineers and we're focused on development.
Yeah, so I think the Litecoin development efforts complement the Bitcoin development efforts really well. So the Litecoin complements Bitcoin, and I think it's very good for both coins for the whole ecosystem where Bitcoin and Litecoin developers work together and make everything better.
Yeah, it sounds like there have almost been some features that were tried in Litecoin, and okay, that works. Maybe we can do this in Bitcoin too. So it's kind of an experimental thing.
The most recent example, a long-standing issue in the Bitcoin reference client, was a level DB corruption that would temporarily render the macOS client unable to function. And this happened only for some users, but it was prevalent enough to be disruptive of Bitcoin and Litecoin adoption and use. The top developers within Bitcoin really tried to figure out the cause of this, but they have plenty of other priorities. I personally led a joint Bitcoin and Litecoin dev bounty where Gavin Andreessen and famous Bitcoin Talk and a few donors from the community and the Litecoin dev team all combined with a Bitcoin Litecoin bounty to attract other people who might understand that particular part of the code through contributions of a level DB consultant from elsewhere and other coders. We also distribute a Bitcoin client that is Litecoin minus Litecoin, because the Litecoin client has a lot of features that are not yet in the Bitcoin 0.8 client. So we managed to test, and it seems that these patches fix the Mac OS corruption issue, and now Bitcoin 0.86 is released to fix that issue.
Returning back to the Script algorithm for just a minute, Charlie, I just want to get your thoughts. People are saying now there's a company, Alpha Technologies, and there's some others that have been talking about developing ASIC miners for script-based coins like Litecoin. What are your thoughts on that? How do you think it's going to impact Litecoin and other script-based coins?
Well, I think that the Litecoin ASICs will come out because Litecoin, basically it's a matter of time. If the price goes high, which is pretty high right now, it becomes worthwhile for someone to research and develop an ASIC specific for mining Litecoin, then people will work on that because it'll be profitable when they actually launch it. When it does come out, my hope is that it won't do the same thing to Litecoin network as what the Bitcoin ASICs did. It will be
which is centralizing effect?
A little bit of centralizing issues. Bitcoin people are concerned about Bitcoin due to the centralization of ASICs. Now, it seems like only the large, wealthy miners are able to have deals with the ASIC companies to get them at a cheap price or get them early, and now they seem to be dominating the Bitcoin mining market. So there might be like 10 large miners that control all the mining. So that's bad because then it's not as decentralized, and they get to control what transactions get mined. They can like prioritize their own transactions over someone else. And if they were malicious, they can even attack the network. Likely not, but it's a possibility. So hopefully, due to Script, Litecoin ASICs will not be so much more powerful than Litecoin GPU mining that it will push out all the GPU miners. So my hope is that it was designed that way, so let's see if it actually does happen. When ASICs do come out, it will still have some democracy, it will still be democratic, there will still be a lot of small miners.
I like to add that even before ASICs came out, the major threat to the security of the Bitcoin or the Litecoin network was the tendency for people to mine at the largest centralized mining pools. Even Satoshi himself did not anticipate this as being a problem until it happened. As a matter of education for all Bitcoin and Litecoin users, it's important to know that it is less secure for the network if everyone is using the largest pools. To help that problem, the Litecoin dev team actually is investing in decentralized mining technology, including helping to sponsor Forrest Voigt, the author of P2Pool. I personally have contributed code to P2Pool, and now we're sponsoring him to improve P2Pool for both Bitcoin and Litecoin for it to scale substantially more. If P2Pool were much larger than it is today, it would not be as big of a systemic risk as the centralized mining pools. I'd also like to add that P2Pool supporting ASICs today is in large part thanks to us, our past support of Forrest Voigt.
So one thing that I've noticed, I've been following Litecoin personally for quite a while, over a year now, not as long as you guys, but I've been aware of Litecoin for a while. I've invested in Litecoin myself. I use Litecoin. I've gotten paid in Litecoin a couple times for voiceover jobs. That's cool. What I notice is there are some people, as you mentioned, Charlie, that don't like Litecoin, and they criticize it. They say it's, I think they're afraid maybe that it's taking away something from Bitcoin, as you noted, and they make all kinds of criticisms. But to me, I've noticed that focus kind of increasing a little bit to the point where I think it's a good thing for Litecoin because people are talking about it, right? And if they really thought it was irrelevant or it was not here to stay, they wouldn't waste time trying to criticize it. So I just wonder, what do you think about the Litecoin haters?
One of the main reasons why people say Litecoin is bad is because they don't like the fact that it's so easy to create a coin that inflates the total Bitcoins out there. So you take Litecoin has like a 8% market share. It kind of inflates the number of cryptocurrencies out there. They don't like that fact. And my answer to that is I think it's just human nature. People like choices. So there's going to be, let's say, 10% of the market taken over by Litecoins. Like you can make thousands of alternative currencies, but they're not going to all take like 10% of Bitcoin's market share. All the alternative currencies added together might take 10%. And that's just the way it will be. And it may be like the number one coin, Bitcoin, takes 90%. Second coin, Litecoin, takes 8%. The third coin might take like 1.5%, and the rest would take the smaller chunk. So it's just the way it's going to be. And until you accept it, people will finally realize that that's the way and not fight it.
I'd like to add two key points to this. First, some of the Bitcoin devs have warmed up to the idea that Litecoin can be useful in being able to prove ideas that may not be popular politically in Bitcoin yet, because Litecoin already has a different philosophy and different users who are not so locked into what the original rules were for Bitcoin. So because of that, we're able to be far more efficient in the growth of Litecoin with the number of users. And beyond that, we love the opportunity and some contributions that we've already had to test concepts before they go to Bitcoin.
One thing I like to try to tell people is you can think of Litecoin as like a running mate to Bitcoin. So we're both fighting the same battle. We're both trying to defeat fiat. We're both cryptocurrencies trying to win the war against fiat, right? Think of it as running mate and be happy that Bitcoin's running mate is not like BBQ coin, right? At least Litecoin has a really good image and we have a lot of good developers. We help out a lot and we don't try to attack Bitcoin or try to overtake Bitcoin. So I think it's a good thing for everyone involved.
It's important for everyone to understand, especially as there is this idea of not wanting to miss the next big thing. But what people don't realize is that a lot of these copies of Bitcoin are made by people who really don't understand the code. Actually, very few of the altcoins have developers who understand the code to the extent to be able to fix a problem, especially in the event of an emergency. I don't like to name names, but one of the other, let's say, copies of Litecoin has struggled to update their software to such an extent that they've offered us bribes to help them to fix their coin, and they ended up hiring someone else at a very high price to fix their coin. So be wary of coins that seem to have lots of good marketing without the engineering skill to back it, I think. We haven't been all that interested in marketing Litecoin ourselves, largely because we're engineers and what we do best is improve technology and to make it better. And I personally believe that if you can make a network stable and dependable in the long term, just maybe people can trust it as a medium for commerce.
Speaking of the value that people see in Litecoin, the price, I think we have to talk about it. For a long time, Litecoin was somewhere around $2 and the exchange rate with Bitcoin is on the order of somewhere around 50 to 100 Litecoins per Bitcoin. Recently, there was a big price spike in Litecoin. It hit an all-time high against Bitcoin and also an all-time high in terms of US dollars. And it was about 50 US dollars, and then one Litecoin was 0.05 Bitcoins or 50 millibits. I guess I'm just curious, what are your comments about that? Do you think it's a good thing for Litecoin long-term? Is it people seeing the value? Is it sort of a bubble? What was going on there?
Yeah, it's kind of incredible that at the peak, Litecoin actually hit $1 billion market cap. I mean, Bitcoin just this year hit $1 billion market cap. Litecoin is definitely way ahead, and it's due to speculation. I mean, right now, Litecoin is I would say, about a year and a half behind Bitcoin. So we don't have as many merchants. We're missing some key infrastructures like payment processing and exchanges. We're only on one big exchange. So compared to Bitcoin, Litecoin is still very young. So a lot of the price is due to speculation. It gets hyped for some reason. Mt. Gox announces that they will support Litecoin, and the price shoots through the roof. And then they don't talk about Litecoin for a while, and then the price drops through the floor. It's all speculation, and it's kind of bad, but we're growing, so it will take some time. Bitcoin went through the same thing, right? It shot through $30 and then dropped all the way back to $2. Litecoin went to 50, it might go back down to $2, who knows, right? And I don't really worry too much about the price. We just worry about making sure the network is secure, build up the infrastructure, and then try to get more people to adopt it, try to convince Bitcoin people that Litecoin is not as scary as people think it is. So that's what we're working on, and with time, the market will grow, infrastructure will come, prices will stabilize, merchants will come.
Purse.io is a gift exchange that lets you get Bitcoins at only a 6% premium and with a credit card. How does it work? You purchase items for other Purse.io members from their Amazon wish lists. In return, you get Bitcoins in the amount of the Amazon purchase. The more people participate, the more Bitcoins will be available, so tell your friends. Get exclusive access today at Purse.io. EasyDNS is the Swiss Army knife for your domain names, helping meet their customers' individual needs since 1998. EasyDNS has been an outspoken critic of SOPA and CISPA. EasyDNS was an early supporter of Bitcoin, and now they are proud to sponsor this show. Do business with a company that shares your values. Get a 13% discount when you pay with Bitcoin. Go to bitcoin.easydns.com and be sure to use discount code LTB.
Charlie, you work at Google, and Warren, you work on all kinds of other projects, and you're both doing a lot, so you don't have time yourselves necessarily to build all this infrastructure. Who's working on the Litecoin payment processor or the API? Who's working on that stuff?
One thing I want to clarify, I recently joined Coinbase a few months ago. Last time I talked to you, I was working with Google.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. And then I decided to go all in with cryptocurrency. So I'm working with Coinbase on Bitcoin stuff. And then at nights and weekends, I work on Litecoin with Warren Litecoin, trying to push the whole ecosystem forward, everything cryptocurrency related. Maybe eventually I can convince Coinbase to support Litecoin. We'll see about that.
I guess another thing is you were saying that, Litecoin is supposed to be light. That's a big thing about Litecoin. And when you say light, part of what you mean by that is that the blockchain is not cumbersome to download and run a full node on your computer. There used to be an Electrum client for Litecoin, which I think you made, Charlie, is that right?
That's correct.
What happened with that? Are there Litecoin clients that currently exist, or do people have to run the Litecoin Qt client to be able to use Litecoin on their computer?
Currently, the main client we have is the Litecoin Qt client. We're working with a lot of different developers to implement other Litecoin clients. So we're trying to convince some of the Bitcoin clients' wallets to support Litecoin. And we're also forking some of the wallet software, the clients, to add Litecoin support to it. There's going to be more Litecoin clients and also the lighter clients too.
Yep, in all your spare time, you're doing this.
I personally have been directing and working with Upstream Bitcoin J and the Android wallet makers to make a long-term maintainable Litecoin wallet for mobile. Someone had already done it earlier this year, but we recommended people not using that one because it was done without understanding the protocol. They were not able to update the code after that. So the new port to Android will be done in a way that is easier to maintain, to rebase and merge with new upstream versions in the future. So that'll be long-term maintainable. Here at the Bitcoin conference, we got some interest from Armory to also support Litecoin because Armory is like at the forefront of security, and it actually is not a lot of code change for them to also support Litecoin. So there's a huge possibility there, especially within like a month or so when they will have Trezor support, where even if your computer is compromised with Trezor, your Bitcoins and Litecoins hypothetically are secure from theft.
Trezor is a hardware wallet for anybody who isn't familiar with that. But what would that look like if Armory were to support Litecoin? Would it be like you run one client and you have your Bitcoins and Litecoins in the same application? Or would it be two different things where you run one for Bitcoin and one for Litecoin?
I don't want to speak for Armory just yet because we only just got this idea yesterday. We actually never met before, and we realized how easy it would be to implement. The concern with adding support for anything is the long-term maintainability. So our dev team would be working with them to make sure that their client is doing all of the rules exactly in the same way as the Litecoin client, because there are a few different rule changes that are different from Bitcoin. And I really have to compliment them that they've done a tremendous job on their client. And additionally, there has been some recent talk of bringing back Electrum for Litecoin. That actually wouldn't be a lot of work. It's just a matter of time to do it.
One thing that you can do with Litecoins, which this is a very important piece of infrastructure, I think, is paper wallets. That's at liteaddress.org, where I think, Charlie, again, you took the code from bitaddress.org and you changed it to support Litecoin. So people can store their Litecoins in a paper wallet, is that right?
That's correct. One of the coolest features of the newest liteaddress.org site is encrypted paper wallet. So one of the problems with previous paper wallet is that if you have your keys on a paper wallet, it's just on the piece of paper. So if someone else sees that piece of paper, there's a QR code on it, or they can just copy the private key down. And once they have your private key, then they have your coins. So even if you put it in like a safe, if someone breaks into your safe, your coins are gone. So one thing cool about encrypted paper wallet is you can pick a passphrase that only you know, a strong one, and then you can encrypt the keys. So what's printed on the paper wallet is an encrypted version. So if anyone sees it, they won't be able to decrypt it unless they have your passphrase. Make sure your passphrase is strong enough, and then they can't decrypt it. And then that way you can make multiple copies of this encrypted paper wallet because they're safe. Like you can even put one in your house. You can like hide it somewhere. You can put one in a safe. So if you lose a copy, you didn't lose your coins because you have another copy somewhere. It's kind of almost a foolproof way of storing your coins. Of course, it's still not easy for your grandma to store your coins in an encrypted paper wallet, but at least it's a very good and safe way to do it now.
I like to add that the liteaddress.org While Charlie started that and did the code for it, it is now among one of several Litecoin-oriented websites that are maintained and secured by a nonprofit organization called the Litecoin Association. Now, this is an entirely different group outside of the Litecoin devs, whose goal is to educate and protect the resources of the Litecoin community. So they have the how-tos, they run the wiki, they run the forum, they have events planned. They were speaking in San Francisco only a few days ago. I highly encourage people that are interested in Litecoin to look at the Litecoin Association and to talk with them on the forum. This is outside of the devs, and we're delighted that other people have picked up this ball to organize the community because we're a little busy. We like to focus on engineering.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
One question that we get asked a lot on Let's Talk Bitcoin, and I get asked a lot personally, is like, how does someone get Litecoins?
Right now, the easiest way is, like, the largest exchange that has the most liquidity with Litecoin is BTCE.com. Getting US dollar in BTCE.com is hard. I think there's like a lot of hoops you have to jump through with verification and stuff, and it might take also a while. So a lot of people tend to buy Litecoins with Bitcoin. I would recommend people buy Bitcoins first and then send some to BTCE and buy Litecoins. It's pretty safe. I've used it for like 2 years now. There hasn't been any issue with BTCE. The easiest way to get Bitcoin is Coinbase, if I can put a plug in for my current employer.
Maybe at some point there'll be easier ways to get Litecoin too. I'm curious, like, what are your long-term plans for Litecoin? What are the next steps, and where do you see it going? What kind of ideas would you like to implement with Litecoin?
The Litecoin development team has been growing over the months, largely thanks to the donations from the Litecoin community. We've been able to financially support more developers who are working on things that we think are important to improve both Bitcoin and Litecoin. So that includes improving decentralized mining. That includes like the major bug fix for macOS that was just done, and we still have to pay the bounty for that.
I bet the price fluctuation makes the bounty situation interesting, right?
Yes, the Litecoin portion of the macOS fix was posted at 200 Litecoins, which at the time was a lot less money. Now to pay that out is kind of painful, but with so many macOS users having trouble with both Bitcoin and Litecoin, it was really worth it to get that bug finally fixed. And I was very happy to have an opportunity to collaborate with Bitcoin developers and together get this problem solved. Beyond that, we have some other things down the pipeline. I'm mentoring a computer science student that is looking at a way to redo the native block storage format in a way that would be more compact. At first, this would be a way to have a much smaller download for a bootstrap.dat so that people can get started with Litecoin or Bitcoin a lot faster. But there has been some talk about this could make block transmission over the network or the native storage format far smaller in the future, which again helps the Lite goal. We have also contracted with prominent Bitcoin dev Peter Todd to work on two key things that would help Litecoin to become more light in the future. One of which is to deal with the huge amount of one Litecoin Satoshi spam that happened in 2011. These happened to addresses largely of which are abandoned now, and they're taking up hundreds of megabytes of UTXO database space that really no one cares about and no one likely will spend them. What our goal is to eventually use a miner soft fork, a vote by the miners. So this would be similar to Bitcoin's pay-to-script hash miner vote soft fork that changes the rule after a certain point, after 90 or 95% of the last 1,000 blocks or so are mining with this new rule, because that means that enough of the network has agreed to this. The proposal to the community so far has been positive on this because this allows the disk and RAM consumption of the client to eventually shrink. And because of the growth of our UTXO set, which is substantially smaller than Bitcoin thanks to the anti-spam rule, we think that that'll help us to be extra light. In addition to that, part of that contract is to begin the implementation of what Bitcoin has planned all along, which is pruning of the blockchain. we're supporting Peter Todd to work on Bitcoin's implementation of pruning. A kind of scary thing for the Bitcoin network has been shrinkage of the number of listening nodes across the global network. And the strength of the global Bitcoin network is only as strong as the number of listening nodes that do fully verifying. And it's been harder for home users with lower bandwidth and disk space due to the very large Bitcoin blockchain. But in the future, you'll be able to have only a subset of the blockchain with a fully verifying node, and that'll help a lot more people to run a fully verifying node. There will be separate nodes called archive nodes that have all blocks available, and other websites where you can download or torrent download the full blockchain. Hopefully, within the next few months, thanks to one of our engineers, we'll have a more compact, compressed bootstrap format so that you'll be able to sync a client from scratch much faster. A very exciting thing that you're likely to see within the next few weeks, one of the major vendors that has been very successful selling real-world goods with Bitcoin is sophisticated enough to implement their own Litecoin payment processor. They don't care about dollars, and they're not quite ready to launch yet, so I don't want to name them. But the really interesting about this is that they realize if they implement a payment processor for Litecoin for people who don't care about fiat, then they can generalize it a little bit and allow other people to use it as a white label shopping cart solution. So lots of people who want to sell various goods and services don't have to do any code to be able to have a checkout solution for Litecoin or Bitcoin with no fiat involved. That can be exciting. The entire goal of Bitcoin and Litecoin is to be a medium of commerce. And it's healthier for both to move away from a wild speculation engine, to have companies that are sophisticated enough to be able to do that and to enable other companies is an exciting thing. I wish I had time to do that myself, and I'm glad other people are getting involved.
Great. And Charlie, anything you want to talk about new features or plans for the future with Litecoin?
I think Warren did a very good job at describing what we're planning to do in the future, a very technical look. So you might not understand everything that he said, but the general idea is that we have different priorities than the Bitcoin dev team. So we can spend our resources on improving the code in a certain direction, and then we might launch something that's a little bit different than Bitcoin. And if it works and Bitcoin sees and likes what we have, we'll push it upstream and they can accept it. So I think having both Bitcoin team and Litecoin team working separately on different approaches is good for both coins. So we get all the good things that the Bitcoin dev team is putting into Bitcoin, and they can get all the good things that we're doing. Obviously, different teams have different priorities and different politics. Sometimes I hear stories that it's hard to get certain things pushed into the Bitcoin code because there's just so many differing opinions. And it's hard to convince all the Bitcoin developers to agree on one thing. The nice thing about Litecoin is we're a little bit smaller. It's just Warren, me, and a few others. And it's easier for us to agree on something and go ahead and do it. So I think in that sense, we can move faster than Bitcoin. And I think that helps out a lot with both coins.
I again would like to mention the so-called Bitcoin OMG client that you can find on the Bitcoin Talk forum thread. It is an enhanced version of the Bitcoin reference client where it is everything that is Litecoin, but it is the Bitcoin protocol. The latest version includes all of the bug fixes in Bitcoin 0.86, plus coin control, disable wallet, and a number of other features. And they were actually tested in Bitcoin OMG before the release of Bitcoin. So that helped to prove especially the macOS corruption fix. It took several variations of those patches to figure out what would actually work to fix that issue.
Is there anything else you want to add?
I think that Litecoin has kind of reached a stage where there's no turning back. It's just going to happen. So I'm really excited about what's going to happen with Litecoin. We're going to see more exchanges supporting it, payment processors, and more merchants. It's a very exciting time. Looking forward to see what everyone else is doing on top of Litecoin.
I'm excited to see that the community has organized around the Litecoin Association as an education arm. of the Litecoin ecosystem to help protect users and to guard against centralization and to improve security. On the development side, it's our plan to eventually have a separate foundation. And this has been a long time in the making because we're in negotiations with different allies. And the goal of our eventual foundation will be the advancement of technology of Bitcoin, Litecoin, and related cryptographic timestamping technology. There exists today already a prototype of timestamping any file, an unlimited number of timestamps without bloating a blockchain. That has the capability of revolutionizing all kinds of other industries and creating a powerful reason that is non-financial for Bitcoin and Litecoin to exist. And we'd like to help to advance the technology of that as well because it has applications in the financial industry, in the security industry, in legal, to prove things that were not modified from the timestamp like a month in the past, 10 years from now, 100 years from now. That can launch an entirely new industry of software. It so turns out that Litecoin may actually be more suitable than Bitcoin for that application because we have finer-grained timestamping abilities.
Charlie Lee and Warren Tagami, thank you so much for talking with me today. I appreciate your time. Where can people find information about Litecoin and about each of you personally if they want to get in touch with you?
Obviously, there's a wiki, Litecoin.info, INFO, which has all the information you can find about Litecoin. There's a Litecoin.org site that explains a bit about Litecoin and where you can download the client. If you want to send me email, you can send it to me at cobley@litecoin.org. So COBLEE@litecoin.org.
You can also ask for help at the Litecoin Talk Forum. If you want to contact me, just find me on the forum. I'm Warren on the Litecoin Forum.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to episode 71 of Let's Talk Bitcoin. Blockchain.info was produced by Andreas Antonopoulos, edited by Adam B. Levine, and featured Nick Carey and Andreas Antonopoulos. Litecoin Stand-Up was produced by Stephanie Murphy, edited by Adam B. Levine, and featured Charlie Lee, Warren Tagami, and Stephanie Murphy. Music was provided by Jared Rubens and Calvin Henderson. Questions or comments? Email adam@letstalkbitcoin.com. Have a good one.